Today, this truck belongs to a viewer of the channel, and well, we don't really get into a lot of custom jobs on this channel, but this truck was offered by Dodge as a military vehicle. Anyway, it is a 1946 Dodge Power Wagon, but not just any Power Wagon. This baby is 6x6. But before getting into all of it, I'm Jay. Welcome to What It's Like. Picture this. You just obtained a classic car that you know nothing about, but you're the type of person that likes the information presented to you while sitting in your favorite seat, possibly in the bathroom. This is the channel for you. We feature the classics, vintage, some exotics, lots of orphan cars, and cars off the beaten path. Dive in deep, specs, period correct ads, as well as do a full dash tour like no one has ever seen it before. It's almost like seeing it for the very first time. If that sounds of interest to you, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Before getting into the whole 6x6 aspect of this truck, because this truck is actually two different trucks combined into one, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Let's talk 1946 Dodge Power Wagon, because that's essentially what this is. Dodge offered the Power Wagon from 1945 to 1980 and then brought back the name in 2005, and it's currently still on sale today. In 1946, it was a medium-duty four-wheel drive truck. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the 6x6 aspect. Believe it or not, this was a military option. Dodge did make a 6x6 Power Wagon. They actually made two versions of it, the WC62 and the WC63 with winch. Dodge built the WC62 6x6 for the war effort because why not? Government made the auto manufacturers stop civilian production from 1943 to 1945. During that time, the auto companies were building war machines under government contracts. The WC62 was 1.5-ton truck that was based off of the WC51 weapons carrier with an extra axle added. And the reason the 6x6 version was made at all was for more troop capacity. It could haul more troops distances, whereas like instead of taking a whole convoy of vehicles, and they're still taking a convoy of vehicles, like don't get me wrong, but they're not taking nearly as many. Think of it a different way. If you think of the WC51 weapons carrier as a car and the WC62 as a bus, you can move a lot more people in a bus than you can a car. Anyway, when on the road, the WC62 was a two-wheel drive vehicle. The front axle, well, all of the axles could be powered separately. The WC63 was exactly the same thing as the WC62. The only difference being MU2 7,500-pound capacity winch. Let's talk specs. So this is going to be hard because this truck is part of two vehicles, the Power Wagon and the WC62. So all of these specs are going to be for the WC62, and it's just to give you a gist of how big this is. And we're not going to do the size, like the height, because the cab is totally different, which will make the height totally different. 17 foot, 11 inches long, 6 foot, 11 inches wide. It weighs 6,925 pounds, moving onto engine. So ours does not have the engine that would originally go into this type of vehicle, but it has something really cool, but we're going to get to it. But if you were just wondering what engine, what power plant was in the WC62, it was a 3.7 liter inline six. It produced 92 horsepower. The truck featured has an aluminum block, 3-cylinder Detroit diesel that is turbocharged as well as supercharged. I wasn't able to find any information on this engine. Evidently, it was super rare. Like, they didn't make that many aluminum block Detroit diesel engines. And they were originally only supercharged, but this engine has both a supercharger and a turbocharger. I'm going to take a page out of Rolls-Royce's book and just say that the horsepower output is adequate as well as the pound-feet of torque is adequate because we don't know the exact numbers. This engine is mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. So let's talk styling. So just check this out. And how these fenders come up here. This looks like a military grade truck. I love the grill. It's almost like a grill that you would cook on backyard barbecue style. Looks like they just took like a big metal bar Just stuck it there for the bumper. This truck is beefy. It's a man's truck. It's got a nice, this almost looks like a battery box, and it might be the battery box because there's cables coming out of it. So just take a look at this design. So just look at how this is all made. Just look at how big these tires are here. I'm gonna show you for reference here. These tires come up to, they come up to my waist. They're huge. And it's so cool how the spacing works down inside here, and you can see all of the leaf springs for suspension. We're gonna get up underneath it here real quick and show you. With the front, notice it's I-beam front axle, as well as it's got leaf spring suspension, and the leaf springs are stacked just on top of the axle, sort of like a horse and buggy wagon. So check out this transfer case. It's got 3 shafts coming out of it. It's got 1 shaft in the front, and it goes to the front axle for front wheel drive. It's got 2 more shafts coming out the rear, and the 1 shaft comes back and hooks into this axle, and notice it sits off to the side, and this one comes out of the transfer case and it comes back to rear axle all the way in the back, but notice the shaft runs on top of the other axle. It's very interesting setup, but it all works. And here's what the rear suspension looks like from underneath the truck. This truck sits up so high that you don't even need to jack it up to work on it, which is great. Coming up to the door here, just notice how high this running board sits. Here's my knee for reference. It comes up to my knee. So getting inside, just open the door like this, and this is what the door panel looks like. This is a steel panel. This is the door handle to get out. This is the window crank for the big window, and notice it does not have vent windows, but the windows are super nice. And look at how thick these doors are. That's my finger for reference. They're really thick. So take a look at this interior. Inside. That's what the door sounds like when you shut it. It's a nice quality shut. Just take a look around here. Just lots of things to look at. It's totally different than a modern car. Windshield wiper for the driver's side here. Passenger side has their own windshield wiper with their own motor. This is the defrosters. So this is where the defrost air comes for this side and that side. This one has the crank out windshield feature. You crank it out like this. So that's how that would operate. It also has the cowl vent, which is it's like an air conditioning vent that goes down at your feet. It's this little rod here, and when you push it down, that pops up. And there's different settings. That's the highest setting it will go to because it doesn't want to interfere with the windshield being cranked out. Here's what first person would look like. Here's underneath the steering wheel. Lots of space underneath the steering wheel. On to the button switches and knobs. Starting on the left and moving right. Water temperature, oil pressure, speedometer with odometer in the center, fuel gauge, amp gauge. Let's walk through some of the controls. So this is for the fuel. This is the starter. You turn the key and then you hit this button. These are for the lights. This is for the heat. All right, let's talk about these shifters. So this one controls the transmission. Obviously it's a U-shaped transmission pattern. Over here, this is the emergency brake, and over here this one controls four-wheel drive, and this one over here controls high and low. So you could push this one all the way back and then your four-wheel drive, and this one will only go in high or low. So up here is high and this is low. Here's what I look like in the driver's seat. There's lots of headroom in this vehicle. There's only enough space really for one more person. There isn't enough space in the center. This cab is really tight in here. On to the glove box test. Here's our test subject. Here's my hand for reference. Here's the glove box in question, and it has a bunch of warning stickers all over it, but look at this. So this is for the transmission. This is the transmission diagram. because it has 6-wheel drive. It shows you what's engaged and disengaged and high and low, and the gear situation, and a warning label saying right axle must not be engaged when driving on high speeds at the highway. Front axle is disengaged when the lever is in the forwardmost position. And then other stuff over here, speeds and what gear you should be in. But anyway, here is the glove box, and look at this glove box. It's absolutely massive. Here, I'm going to stick my whole arm in here so you can see how big it is. So no problem at all. But it's also worth mentioning this one does not lock. It's just the door that fits over top of this hole, essentially.
The key, and then push the black button. Push, there you go.
On to the pros and cons. I'm getting all of these pros and cons from my experience with this truck. On the positive side, there is nothing like it. You will not lose it in a parking lot. Celebrity status while driving it. Can go just about anywhere and is a real conversation piece. Cons, it is a small turning radius, meaning that you have to do a lot of K-turns whenever turning around. Tight cabin, only room for 2 people. All right, now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to give me the correct name of the band as well as song title, both correctly. First one to do so will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. Here's your hint. Think 70s. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. I really appreciate all of the continued support. It really means a lot to me to be able to do this, and it's just amazing, and I thank you guys so much for that. Anyway, if you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below. I read and answer all comments posted. If you'd like to talk to me one-on-one, go ahead and look at our Facebook group. It correlates with this YouTube channel. There's no obligation to join, but it gives you the opportunity to share your rides, stories, and experiences with the cars. Link will be in the description. Until next time, toodaloo!